Morning, everyone, and thanks India Bioscience for finding myself worthy of giving you this lecture about my journey, and hopefully this will be helpful for some of you. So, as you can see, my name is Bodhisatta Nandy, and it is really difficult to pronounce, particularly for those coming from northern part of India. So better to call me just Bodhi. So I am Bodhi from myself Berhampur. Um, I am actually born and brought up in ICER system. So I'm going to talk a lot about ICER system today as well as tomorrow. I'll start off with uh, my journey as usual. So my journey began in Kolkata. I was born and brought up in Kolkata, spent 25 years of my life in Kolkata, studied in Calcutta University, BSc, MSc, both in zoology, very, very conventional. But there were a lot of unconventional decisions that I had to take. I got exposed to some very, very influential mentors, teachers, mentors. And for those reasons, very early in my life, I decided to become an evolutionary biologist. So for many, um, we have to find one source of motivation and pick one subject area of research. For me, it came very early. When I started my BSc, I got exposed to a teacher who was fantastic, who introduced me to the wonderful problems in evolution ecology, animal behavior, and I started my journey in evolution ecology. I ended up doing my MSc, and eventually I wanted to join a very famous professor in IISc, but I would have it. I joined a very young professor who was supposed to join an institute which sounded like Indian Institute of Science Eastern Region, IISER. That was the acronym for me back when I was in MSc. But as it turns out that it was Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, and there were three which were coming up back then. One was in Kolkata, the other one in Mohali, other one in Pune. So I joined ICER Kolkata. I was the first batch of PhD students to join ICER system. My professor moved from ICER Kolkata to ICER Mohali. I eventually finished my PhD from ICER Mohali. I was the first biology PhD to graduate from ICER Mohali, and had seen all the transitions of transit campus, moving lab from here to there, and so on and so forth. I still continue to do it when I become a faculty. So if any of you want to talk to me about how to move labs, how to spend your time in a developing institution, I can talk for the entire day. Uh, Keeping things short, so I joined Prasad for my PhD. He was a fantastic mentor, fantastic. I mean, whatever motivation I had for science, for research, and for continuing to become an academician, it's all from him. I took it forward. I decided to stay in the same field, life history and sexual selection. This is the core area that he also works in, and we never had any problem of partitioning our. We don't compete. We actually collaborate. When I have a problem, academic problem, not administrative problem, academic problem, I just call him up. I ask what is his opinion. We discuss. We are more of a collaborator rather than competitor. So this might not be the case with many of you, but you have to find out whether you are competing with your mentors. I spent some time in JNCSR about a year. After graduating from ICER Mohali, I moved to JNC and spent about a year as a postdoc. And that was the time when I was trying to find out what to do, whether to go out abroad for a postdoc. And as the situation was, there was a lot of fund crunch back then. None of the professors with whom I wanted to work with had money. And that was the time early career fellowships were big time making an entry to Indian academic sector. And there was this program, Inspire Faculty, and there was another one by Wellcome Trust, early career. So I applied for both. Fortunately, Inspire Faculty worked out for me. Many of you will not have the same perception about Inspire Faculty as of now, but I had a wonderful experience as Inspire Faculty. I had a few advice from senior professors that you go to you find this early career fellowship, go to a department where you are more likely to get a position. So I talked to a bunch of people and eventually settled down in BHU, Banaras Hindu University in Varanasi. Zoology department decided to host me. I joined the department for almost 2.5 years, more than 2.5 years. I worked there with full independence. I also had 3 students there. So I taught, exposed to teaching very early in life, and then I could have a very small, very modest lab. I mean, it was probably about 1/4 of this stage was my lab space. I needed some very commonly available facilities like one set of racks, complete air conditioned room, and so on and so forth. Everything was there, and I worked there for about 2.5 years with full independence, students, all the supports and all that. Then I got the opportunity to move to a new ISER Berhampur. First, ISER Tirupati also had an offer for me, but for whatever reason, I decided to go to ISER Berhampur. And I joined ISER Berhampur first as a contract position, and then about 6 months later, I joined in a regular position. So this was a leap of faith I had to take. I had to give up my position in BHU, where I did have a possibility of finding a faculty position, and move to a contract position in an ISER. But I did take that chance, risk. But it worked out eventually, and I'll tell you why it worked out for me. Uh, I'll just briefly tell you about what I do, my current research focus. I study adaptation. You see, very early in your independent career, if you set up a broad perspective of your research, that's very good. In fact, many places will ask you, what is your broad perspective? What do you want to do? Not a small problem, but in the next 10 years or 15 years, where do you want to see yourself? So I study adaptation, causes of adaptation, and constraints. What constrains adaptation and what leads to adaptation. I use Drosophila as a model system very commonly. I do use something else as well, I'll show you. But I do study these tiny fruit flies. They show wonderful behavior in the lab. And we have these laboratory adapted populations, which you can study in the lab almost as if you are studying an animal in its native environment. The laboratory environment is their native environment, so I could study all the behavior and whatever I'm interested in using these fruit flies. So I study mating behavior, mate choice, sexual selection, those sort of things. And if you have seen Drosophila, you will see that much of their life is about mating, mate choice, and sexual selection. So this is a very good model. Flies have a very cryptic life of sexual selection. I do study them as well. We call it post-copulatory sexual selection. A lot of fertility traits, including sperm traits, sperm motility, number, size, etc., have evolved as an adaptation to post-copulatory sexual selection. I do study female reproductive system as well. Recently, we have been studying how female reproductive system evolves under nutritional deprivation. And over the last couple of years, we have started studying dispersal as a process, as an exploratory behavior. One of my students, very independent student, started working on these beetles. These are Parthenium beetles. They have a very curious behavior. If you are interested, I can talk to you about it. They have an extraordinarily long mating. The mating goes on for hours, 4-5 hours at a stretch, which is in insect life like spending years just in copula. And for a behavioral ecologist, this is a puzzle because mating does not really is required for this to be so long. Much of our lab work actually does something called experimental evolution. So many of you may have this notion that evolution is a very slow process and cannot be observed in the lifetime of a scientist. But we very regularly do experimental evolution using our fruit fly populations. So we take populations, subject them to a novel ecology, and see them evolve over generations. So we study aging, we study nutritional adaptation, we study thermal adaptation using experimental evolution. So this is the broad sketch of the different kinds of problems that we work on. I'm not going to elaborate them, but just look at this side. So these are all the broader problems, like long-term problems. These are the problems which take, each of the experiments take years to be completed. And these are experiments, these are problems which takes about few months. So there are short-term experiments, there are long-term experiments. And this is a very important part of how I strategize my research. If I only do experimental evolution, which are fairly long-term experiments, it will take a long time for me to generate data and to publish. And you have to always trade off with whether you want to address a very big problem, which will typically take a longer time, and also be productive very quickly, which is very important early in your career when you start off. Over the years, I haven't published too many papers, but whatever I have published, I have made sure that these papers are in journals which are very, very well respected in the field. I have never cared about impact factor. In fact, in my field, it's ridiculous to care about impact factor. The top journal in our field is Evolution, which has an impact factor, if I am not wrong, around 3.5, which is ridiculously small. So it's practically not possible for me to worry about impact factor, but I also genuinely think that, talking to my peers, there are journals which inflate their impact factor in reasons, by ways it is not worthy of considering. So therefore, it is better to worry about which journal is more respected in your field rather than the impact factor. So prioritize your target based on that. I have done that. And less number is fine, but the papers should be good, solid papers. And one very important thing, make sure that your students write it. So I think this point came up in the first talk itself, that the students that you get in India, they are not very, very fluent in many, many aspects, including writing. Writing paper is a very important skill, which you will realize once you start your group, you'll realize that you have to teach your student. And I found this to be the hardest job in the out of everything that I have to do. So most of the time you have to go back and forth, but still it is worth letting your student write at least the first few drafts. Then on top of that, you correct and you show the student, okay, how you are correcting that. It will take a long time for one draft to be written up, but it's absolutely worth doing it. It will slow down your paper production, but that's okay. At least to me, it's perfectly okay. That's part of your mentoring. So my first grant was the Inspire faculty. I could start my group with Inspire faculty, and it gave me enough money. So my kind of work does not need a lot of money. And I could start my lab with this. I had a fairly generous support from the Institute seed grant. Then I was awarded this co-research grant from SCRB. And then there was another grant from Ignite Life Science Foundation. There's a very interesting group if you want to explore. Ignite has several success stories. Some of you are in the Ignite board. And recently I got this ANRF Advanced Research Grant. You can see that there are large amount of gaps between the grants, but my lab has never ran out of money, because you have to keep, or I had to keep an eye on when the fund is going to go dry and then drop a grant application. And one of the major problem in writing a grant application is framing the research problem. I think most of you get trained for this, but what you need to also figure out is how to package it for a grant proposal. Getting feedbacks from people who are well placed to give you suggestions, that's very important. And alignment to the government or the granting agencies priority areas, that is something that you have to be careful about. Right. I can talk about this topic for the entire day. Building a research group. As you can see, this was my group in BHU when I started off as an Inspire faculty. And over the years, the group has changed quite a bit. And hiring your first students is probably going to be the most important hiring you're ever going to do. Your first few students will make your group, set your lab culture, and then you have to find a way of maintaining sort of a continuity. So what I did was I hired 3 students to start off with, actually 2 students, and then 6 months gap another student, and there was another gap of about one year. So when they graduated, the next pool of students joining, they had a little bit of overlap. This overlap is very important. So initially, I have seen some of my colleagues in ISER Berhampur, they have taken, say, 4 students in one go, without worrying that when they will graduate, all of them will graduate together, and there will be a bit of a step between 2 generations, which can be a problem in maintaining continuity. Um, as a supervisor, your role is very, very complex. You'll realize when you start a group that it's just not advising a student for science, it is all sorts of things. Very soon, your lab will develop some kind of an internal dynamics. You have to understand that. You have to weigh how much you scold them, how much you advise them. And over the years, what has happened, even the government of India's emphasis on the mental well-being of the students is right now very, very high. So every 6 months there is going to be a whole bunch of events in an institution, be it a private organization or a government organization, that what are you doing for student welfare. PhD students are primary responsibility of the supervisors. That you have to always keep in mind. Plus, if you are in an institute like ISER, you have a whole bunch of undergrads who will be working with your lab in your lab. So it becomes a fairly daunting task. You have to be yourself have to be in a right space, mental space, to advise them, to listen to them. Listening to them is the most simple thing that you can do. Um, when I joined ISER Berhampur, and I'm only going to talk about ISER Berhampur here. When I joined ISER Berhampur, so these are the things that I was supposed to say, facilities which were available, challenges, infrastructure, and so on. I can tell you that there was nothing. When I joined ISER Berhampur, there was nothing. So I had to set up everything, starting from department's manual about academics, about research, about purchase and everything. You ask me about any committee, I have been in every single committee. And this is what you have to be very, very clear about. If you are joining an institute which is still in its infancy, you have to be there in all sorts of administrative roles. You cannot say no. If you say no, somebody said that, don't complain. I agree to that. If you say no, don't complain. Okay. So as a founding faculty member in the ISER Berhampur community, I had to be in everything. So facilities that were there, I can just simply show you. This was my first lab. So this was a lab. One side of it had undergrad teaching, and this was a bench which I used to use for my experiments. And this door opened to a small room which had a few racks, which was my stock room. So flies used to be kept there. And my student who joined about a year later, he used to work in some corner of the transit campus. This is his Parthenium, and he's observing his beetles. Uh, Almost 2 years after this, I got this space, which is slightly bigger, and I had to wait from here to here. This is the current lab, which is still not the final lab, by the way. There are still, you can see that there are no lab furnitures. These are wooden tables and so on. I'm still waiting for the final furniture to be delivered. And from here to here, this transition took almost 8 years. So now you can imagine the amount of adjustment that one has to make. Well, this was the lab at least 2 years back, and this is how it is. And moving from here to here, lot of work had to be done. And whenever you are joining in an institute, you just keep in mind that don't expect everything to be there in front of you, handed to you to start your work. Very often, Doesn't matter whether it's a new institution or an old institution, you may have to actually work for your space. You have to fight for your space, whatever you need, then you set it up. Right, so I don't have much time. Well, of course, people will talk about all the conferences and everything that you have to perform. I'll just end with this part. If you happen to join in an institution which has education emphasis, like ICER, you be very clear about your teaching aspiration. You have to be very passionate about teaching. You have to be able to design basic courses, intermediate courses, and advanced courses. You should work on them. You should look at some of the courses that are already being floated by this institution and be very, invested in planning your move according to that, and be a part of the designing course curriculum committee and so on. Every single committee, every single exercise, you'll be amazed how much discussion people do in order to draft one line in a course curriculum. So that is an experience in its own right. So I'll stop here. I think I've run out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bodhi. Can you please pass the mic?
Hello, Professor Nandi. Thank you for sharing a very comprehensive picture of your career. I'm going to ask a question that might make you a little uncomfortable, because all the mentors who have spoken till now, they have shared how they have overcome challenges and all the decisions they made. Can you share a couple of your worst decisions that you took, that like in hindsight you somehow survived them, but when you actually like look back, you would have been like,
I can tell you,
I would have been better without them.
My worst decision was to accept the dean student's position. No, I see. Yeah, there are going to be decisions. I am not a person who would take a decision and then go back and lament about it. So therefore, I don't really regret taking a decision. But sometimes you will end up taking some decisions which will sort of backfire, and then you have to find out how you handle it. That's more important rather than regretting. I think that's the way to look forward to it. For example, I'll tell you, when I accepted the dean student position, I was about 5-6 years into this job. This is too early to be any dean. Forget about dean students. Dean students and dean academics, these are the two toughest dean positions that anybody will tell you. And I took it, I accepted it because it was good for the institution. I had the aspiration that I could do something good for the institute, good for the students. I had that aspiration. 1 year down the line, I started realizing, oh my God, this is becoming too much. If being a warden is difficult, being dean students is 10 times more difficult. And but I had to find some part of your life will get hit. And one of the things that I think people should talk about in some forum, that how do you find this right work and life balance? How do you balance your personal life and professional life? Sometimes it can be very, very difficult. And I cannot tell you an answer to this. How did I manage it? Because I think I made a mess of it. I'm still making a mess of it, but it's okay. It's not for the entire life. It's for 3 years. So I'm going to be completing in another 8 months or so. I think I'll be relieved after that. Yeah.
Hi, I resonate with most of the things which you've told. Two things. One, all these shifts would have shaken the students, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And the other is because of all these responsibilities, you would be tied up, not being available to them for quite some time. How do you manage keeping the spirits of the students high despite all of this?
One thing I have learned from my mentors is that don't put pressure on your students. Accept that I am not available for discussing this paper or this idea with you. Accept that, and try to do as much as possible. My students see that I am making an effort. They appreciate that. So far, 4 students have graduated from my lab. All have graduated with at least 2 very good papers. I make sure of that at least. That is a basic requirement. And they did not, all of them suffered from pandemic. So they had to spend 1 year extra compared to just 5 year, 10 year. But I do make sure that I do the bare minimum. Uh, my presence is bare minimum, at least so that they don't complain that for my absence their career is suffering. That is, I think it's a criminal offense. That should not happen ever. But of course, if I could invest more time, instead of 2, maybe they could have published 5 papers. That is true. Uh, but I don't know. I don't think I have done a very good job of that.
Thank you for such a nice, inspiring talk. Here.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. My question is, as a faculty to a new institute where you are setting up lab and establishing the institute, how is the time allocation to setting part, mentoring, and the teaching? How did you percentage of your time you gave to all this?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you my perspective and the most common mistake. My perspective is that when I joined, I knew that things have to be set up. So my first step was, what are the basic things that I need? One table, one chair, or whatever, 2 chairs, this thing, that thing. I first make sure of that, whether it is there. Normally, you'll be surprised at how easy to get those basic things. Okay. Once you get those basic things, then the remaining things can wait a little bit. So I have always planned, let's say, my setting up of my lab or moving my lab. I had to move from Banaras to Berhampur, from transit campus to main campus. And even in main campus, I am in a transit lab. It will soon move to the permanent lab. But one thing that I have done is that I have planned it like 2-3 months in advance. So 2-3 months in advance, I planned that, look, this is the tentative time when this is going to move. Students should know that there is going to be a break of about 10-15 days. But those 10-15 days are worth wasting, because then you are going to move to a better place. So that sort of motivates the students. The most common mistake that many young faculties joining the department I have seen doing is that they join and they wait. Somebody will come and somebody will tell me, okay, what do you need? That does not work. At least in India, I think most places in India, it won't work. You have to be very proactive. You have to go and tell people that, look, I need these basic things to start off with. Please tell me how to get it. Do I have money? Do I have space? Do I know how to procure? So these are the things that you have to very quickly learn. And the moment you have started that initial part, then the rest of the things will take time. Say, for example, you are buying crores worth of instrument, or say even lakhs worth of instrument. You have to go for tendering and all that. You have to learn those processes, and that will always take time. It doesn't matter who is doing it. I do it, it will take time. You do it, it will also take time. But don't wait for those things to work out to start the basic things. At least start very simple experiments. Get some undergrads, get some project students, and to start some basic experiments running. That will keep students engaged. That will give you time to discuss new ideas which you can explore once you have the big setup.
Thank you. Thanks.
One more question.
Hello.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very inspiring talk. And for me, the main thing that attracted me is you're completely bred in India, in the sense you did your PhD, postdoc, and everything in India. So when it comes to hiring, how does that influence your panel, the interview panel? And easily, if I see anybody who's doing a postdoc or a PhD abroad, the timescales are very different. Here we grapple with many things that I can't even put on any paper, like getting reagents and then everything. Like in hands, it's crazy. I'm not been able to make that kind of progress like my colleagues would have done in the 3 years abroad. So when it comes to an interview panel, how do you address that? Of course, the paper publishing landscape, it's not going to be the same, and I'm not going to be on par with them. So how? What's your suggestion?
See, I'll tell you one thing. This is a very, very heterogeneous, system. I mean, I cannot give you one answer to this. My experience I can share. I have been part of some of the selection committees. I can tell you that there will be a benchmark. You have to cross that benchmark. Doesn't matter whether you're working in India or whether you're working US or Europe. Doesn't really matter. There is going to be a benchmark. I don't believe that that benchmark is too high for those who are working in India. Um, that is going to be very heterogeneous. That will depend on
is already so high. So what do we do? Even it's the similar situation with me. I'm from India all throughout.
Yeah, I can just tell you that you can't worry about what the selection committee will think about. You do your best and let the selection committee do their job. No, that's what I'm telling, that this is very heterogeneous. So every single selection committee, there is no fixed cutoff, right? So there is going to be different selection committee and different benchmark. Now the benchmark for ISAR Berhampur will be something, benchmark for NCBS will be something else, right? And that also sometimes depends on the pool of applications that we have received. So nobody can give you this answer, what is the benchmark? What my experience is that that benchmark is not difficult for Indian, say, postdocs to achieve. Now, after that, it boils down to how you present your case and so on. That is the second degree.
Yes, so I'll get, enter this discussion now. So, a very valid point. I'm sure a lot of you who are working in India have this in mind. Like Bodhisatta, I also am what you call an India bred, as you said, right? So I didn't go abroad for a PhD or a postdoc, and I got a job just after my PhD. See, the thing is, as he rightly said, there are different requirements in different institutions at different points of time. They're looking for the right people in their institutions. Having done a postdoc abroad in itself is not a qualification.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not as if we want somebody who's on a postdoc abroad. No, of course not. We want somebody who's good, who knows what they are doing. We want somebody with experience in a certain area, a certain field. It depends on how you perform in the interview, what you say, what your proposal is like, right? I mean, it all comes across in the discussion. So this thing of having done a postdoc abroad as a necessary requirement for a position in India is not always true, right? And many times is not true. And very good people who've not gone abroad but have other expertise and experiences in India, come from institutions or backgrounds that have done good work, get positions and appointments. So don't be disheartened by the fact that you have not done a postdoc abroad. Whatever you do here, do it well. I mean, that's the thing. So don't worry about this having gone abroad.
I would say that. I would say the same.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of add to what someone already said. The benchmark is set by the field, right?
Yes.
Not by impact factor. In most organizations that do judicious hiring with freedom to do their own hiring, right? And also the benchmark in the field, if one is looking at a journal name, which sometimes becomes a proxy to judge the work quality, which it shouldn't be, even then it is the committees know that you can do more and publish in so-called more difficult to publish journals when you are outside India than you are here, given some resource constraints. So the benchmark is set based on where you are and what you've done. And ultimately, it is the quality of what you do and how you can speak for it and your vision. Having said that, we still grapple with legacy issues in entrenched systems where journal impact factor, unfortunately, even today is a reality you cannot wish away. I have sat also in, these screening and selection committees in organizations that have to follow these rules. But even there, what they do is on paper, they will be following, impact factor, which you can do through predatory publications. So if there is a candidate with the very high cumulative impact factor and a bunch of predatory papers, that candidate is not considered, right? So that's not the trap one should fall into. Good work, irrespective of the method of hiring, whether you're following these guidelines where you add scoring system, which is still there in the many universities, or institutions that are free to hire, it is the good work will always speak out irrespective of where you're from.
Okay, let's thank Bodhi once again.